And I think you're right. I mean, obviously, of course, you made it from Exeter to, you know, central London. You worked on one of the biggest magazines that there was. And of course, and, you know, I was part of that culture. We helped come up with the idea of what success might look like for young women, because the understanding was, you know, sometimes people want a blueprint. And I don't know what your feelings are about this, whether it's sort of, and I want to come on to the girl boss thing, because sort of your mum's generation was probably having it all. My generation was sort of the tail end of having it all. Your generation, a millennial, right?
Yeah.
Was very much, you were coming into it with, you had acknowledgement of having it all, but then you sort of hit your career when girl boss and hustle culture, and you sort of you hit the workplace when there was a recession. When, didn't you say one of your tutors, I think, said to you, just so you know, pretty much you're going to be unemployed, something like that, I seem to remember in the book.
Yeah.
So what does that do to your notion of success then, when you're pretty much told it's going to be really hard for you to be successful because look at the world around you? What then happens?
Yeah, that's a lot of people in my generation's first experience of the workplace, or even talking about work, is like, you better be grateful for whatever you get given because it's a recession. There's not a lot out there. Get what you can get and don't complain. That was sort of the message. And that was fine. I went in with that attitude. I just got any job I could possibly get. But then also on the side of that, the internet was starting to get very exciting. There were bloggers, there was that just the rise of social media, and you were seeing people earn money in different ways. So I had two things kind of jarring. I had people going, you better not rebel, you better just follow that straight and narrow, get a job, get a 9 to 5, get a mortgage, blah 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 blah, the culture we're born into. And then on the other side was this really sparkling, exciting thing of, actually you could be really successful in your own way and start your own side hustle or business idea. I mean, I was so excited by that. I still am.
And actually you became, whether you liked it or not, you ended up becoming a sort of self-help figure for, because of course you wrote your very successful book, The Multi-Hyphen, which I think a lot of people interpreted you were sort of advocating for hustle culture, but actually you were just explaining there was a different way to have a career, there could be multiple facets to it. But one of the things that I'm intrigued about, and you have touched upon it, is that there was this sparkly thing over here, which was basically, well, if you become a brand rather than work for a brand, then actually riches and success may well be yours. In the book, I think you use this word, correct me if I'm wrong, but you talk about personal branding, and you talk about the end result being, I think you say it's dehumanizing. And
Yeah.
I'm really interested in your thoughts about what was offered as an opportunity to a young generation of, you can be a personal brand, think how amazing that will be. We're now seeing the ramifications of that. What are those ramifications of being a personal brand 24/7?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great question. And I kind of love the fact that, I mean, the world is changing so quickly. It's just so funny that in 5 years, I can be talking from a place of hindsight about a weird time in history where everyone was walking around as personal brands. And I guess continuing on in some way, I still am. But peeling back that layer of, yeah, it was strange. And I don't blame myself for getting wrapped up in it, because the influencer culture and getting paid to be yourself. I mean, isn't that the dream, to be paid to be yourself? I really, really bought into that. But at a cost of something. There's always a cost if you are living in that way. And, it's your privacy, or it's your mental health, or it's the fact that you can't switch off, or that you are tethered to your phone 24/7. There is a payoff there. And, my sister, for example, she has a 9 to 5 and she is so thrilled by that. That is safety and security. And it's funny that in this book, I'm sort of saying there must be a middle ground. I mean, we don't have to talk in extremes. Like, there can be nuance to this conversation now, but I'm still working it out. But that time made me realize I don't want to be a brand. I don't want to be a brand anymore. And I'm sort of taking off that hat a little bit, and sacrificing some stuff, but there's no tiny violin here.
I know there's no tiny violin. But it's interesting, that whole personal brand, the idea of a personal brand, and what you're describing is, you're basically your work and your personal life are essentially the same thing. They become the same thing. And it seems to me, you've obviously been at the forefront of it, that actually can be quite unforgiving, because you represent something to people. And actually, if you fall short of anything, then, you know, we see this all the time with mob culture and cancel culture, that your fans can take away your success. So success is this very precarious thing if you're a personal brand as well, because the opportunity to get it wrong by the people who've put you there is very, very great, and you're not protected by a corporation. So it's hugely exposing. So I've always really felt for influencers that they can be up here 1 minute, but down here the next. And
Yeah.
I wondered if because you've been on both sides. You worked for a digital agency when you sort of were starting out. You became I don't know how you feel about the term influencer, but you became very influential. How do you feel about that the precariousness of the success you have when it's all predicated on being a personal brand?
Well, you've touched on it there, really, the point of redefining success, because if success is hanging by a thread of followers or whatever on Instagram, you know, that's obviously kind of going away now anyway. Success really should be about building a community that wants to learn with you. And actually, the opposite of cancel culture, people going, yeah, you probably did mess up there, but we're kind of we're with you on the ride. Like, we actually really love your work to the extent that we're going to be there. And that's kind of how I feel with some of my readers. They're just sort of, yeah, along on the ride, which I love. But I feel like if you feel successful in your day-to-day life, and it's not because of you've got X, Y, and Z, it's not the promotion, it's not the amount of followers, it's not whatever, there is a powerfulness, there's an empowered feeling to that. And I feel like I'm really on that journey now of, you know, for example, it's like the publication day today for my book, but I still had exactly the same day today as I did last Tuesday, probably. Went for a run, had a cup of tea, had breakfast with my husband, phoned a friend. Today isn't any special day. It's really not. It's a day that I'm proud of because the book's coming out, but my success now doesn't impinge on, you know, what needs to happen for me to prove myself anymore. And I think that's the story of this book, is like, we kind of have to have something stronger to feel good about in this time that we're in.